Hi students, welcome to week 3. Today we're going to be talking about cultures and stories. So readers pay attention to how cultures are portrayed in stories and how they are similar or different than their own lives. So when readers pay attention to these things about culture, then they learn more about their own culture and other cultures. So in fantasy, something that's really interesting is that these cultures are made up a lot of the time. So the foods that people eat may not be foods that you've ever heard of. Homes that they live in and words that they use may be completely made up. I know we've talked about Harry Potter and how J.K. Rowling completely made up a lot of her own words in order to fit the dynamics and what it was happening in her text. So you may be asking, well, what is culture? So the culture is a way a group of people act and what they believe in. So, for example, family. So, what is the family dynamic and how many children does a typical family have in that culture? Who has the power in the culture or who has the most respect? Traditions. What music do they listen to? What activities do they engage in? So, a lot of these can be embedded within traditions. I know like beliefs and religions can be embedded in traditions. Same thing with holidays. Same thing with dress as well. Like you have traditional dress that some cultures wear in particular instances. Like a Chinese person may wear cultural garb of Chinese wear to specific cultural events. So, what do men, women, children wear, and when do they wear it? Holidays. What are the biggest holidays that separate this culture from other cultures? So a lot of cultures celebrate Christmas. A lot of cultures celebrate the New Year. But how is the United States New Year different from the Chinese New Year? How we celebrate Christmas in the United States different than how they celebrate Christmas in Germany? Same thing with Thanksgiving. We're the only country that celebrates our particular Thanksgiving. Lots of other countries celebrate their own Thanksgiving. And what does that mean to them? What do the people believe in? So the majority of people may be Christian, or they may be Jewish or Hindu. There's lots of different religions that people could believe in. Language. What language do they speak and why do they speak that language? So we speak English in the United States because we were colonized by England. So lots of other countries speak a specific language because they were colonized or because they were taken over by another country. What is the country known for eating? So food is the last one about culture. So this is a video. If you'd like to go back and watch it, you can click the slides. The culture of Panem. So Panem is a fictional place in the Hunger Games series, and their culture is way out there, way different than our culture. And this was really just to show you how different their culture is compared to ours. So we're going to read a story called Maria Molina and the Day of the Dead. And we want to focus on Maria's culture and how it's different than ours and how it is similar. So that Venn diagram in the middle there. Let me go back to the very beginning. Maria Molina and the Days of the Dead. When I woke up from my nap, I was in the graveyard, but I was not scared. Almost my whole family was there with me. Everyone except my abuela, my grandmother, and Pablo, my baby brother. They were buried here. My aunt and uncle were missing too. They lived in the next village and hadn't arrived yet. It was Pablo we were honoring that night. My brother died when he was just a few months old, not big enough to do anything besides laugh and cry and play with a few toys. We will honor his spirit on the first of los Dias de los Muertos, the days of the dead, my mother told me all year. That is the night the angelitos, the little ones, are remembered. Perhaps Pablo will give us a sign to let us know all is well. In the market, I had just enough money to buy one calavera de azúcar, a sugar candy skull with Pablo's name on it. Now I set it by Pablo's grave with the other offerings. If I lived in the United States, I, Maria Molina, would not be in a graveyard tonight. I would be out trick-or-treating on Halloween with enough money to buy lots of candy in a fancy costume. I drank another cup of hot chocolate and tried to stay awake. I wrapped my serape tighter around me. My father was lighting a black beeswax candle. It lit up our offerings for Pablo, an ear of corn, his favorite toys, a piece of chocolate, many white flowers, and a small pan de los muertos, bread of the dead. We have brought our offerings to you, Pablo, he said softly. Come and be pleased to receive the soul of all that we have. It wasn't much. Our family was very poor. Suddenly the candle blew out. No one spoke at first. Was it magic? Was my brother sending us a sign? Or was it the wind? We sat there till morning, surrounded by the sweet smell of incense, talking softly and remembering Pablo. The next day was the second of the Days of the Dead. Today we honor our ancestors, my mother reminded me, your abuela. In the morning, I helped to clean grandmother's grave and decorate it with wreaths of marigolds, the flower of the dead. We set oranges, sweet pumpkin, peanuts, and a photograph of my abuela on an embroidered tablecloth. In the afternoon, I went back to our house to help my mother prepare grandmother's favorite foods: tortillas with blue corn, tamales wrapped in banana leaves, and mole, a chicken in a sauce of chocolate and chilies. I wish your aunt and uncle would hurry, my mother said. They say that if you are away from home on the Days of the Dead, you might run into returning souls on the lonely roads. Is that really true? I asked her, but she just smiled. Soon my aunt and uncle did arrive safely. They took me to the market with them to buy more pan de los muertos. Bakery shelves bulged with round loaves of the special bread, glistening with reddish, purple, or lemon yellow glazes. Some smelled like licorice, some like cinnamon. Bakers had been working night and day for weeks, kneading, shaping, baking. In the candy stores, piles of sugar skulls grinned at us. Bits of colored foil and fancy candies twinkled in the sun. Street vendors sold candles, bunches of fragrant herbs, wildflowers of every color, the spiciest foods and the sweetest drinks. I held my aunt's hand tighter. My favorite things in the market were the toys. Skeleton puppets that danced on sticks in the wind, brightly decorated masks to scare your friend with, toy coffins with skeletons that popped out when you pulled a string, skeleton earrings, and a necktie pins that looked like toys. Gold and silver flakes on everything glittering in the sun. I let go of my aunt's hand and ran to look at the tiny dolls. They had garbanzo beans for heads and little skeleton bodies doing almost everything you can think of. Taking a bath, getting married, fighting a bull, even marching in a funeral procession. My uncle bought a skeleton doll playing guitar to set on my grandmother's grave. She had loved to play the guitar. I had no money to buy anything, but I loved to look. Then it was time to get back to the graveyard. As the darkness fell, we lit candles and began keeping vigil. My father told me what to say. We miss you, abuela, I said softly. We have brought our offerings. Come and be pleased to receive the soul of what the land has given us. A grasshopper flitted among the offerings. Perhaps it was magic. They say the souls of the dead inhale the taste of their feasts by way of grasshoppers or moths. Perhaps grandmother was letting us know she was pleased. I fell asleep for a while, and when I awoke, the fiesta had begun. After a certain time, they say, the spirits of the dead go away. It is we, the living, who actually get to eat the food. Just as the day had sparkled with colored ribbons, tissue paper, decorations, bright flowers, now the night sparkled with black and yellow candles and fireworks. Laughing faces loomed all around. People visited, prayed, gossiped, like a big family reunion. I think the children had the most fun. Perhaps not as much as Halloween in the United States, but we were excited to be up so late. Excited just to be out of school during these special days. A group of us performed El Baile de los Esquelitos, the dance of the skeletons, with jerky movements skeletons might have. Others told ghost stories, especially about spirits who take ghastly revenge on relatives who don't honor them properly on the Days of the Dead. As much fun as I was having, I finally did doze off. My father had to carry me home in his arms the next morning, as we all went back to our little adobe house. Falling asleep in my own bed, I heard my family begin planning the next year's celebration of Los Días de los Muertos. But by the time of the next year's Days of the Dead, something sad had happened. No one else in our family had died, but my mother and father had gone north to the United States, leaving us children with my aunt and uncle. I missed my father and mother fiercely. Sometimes I cried. Not long after that year's celebration in the graveyard, my parents sent word through friends that they had found a place to live. They sent word that they had found jobs, first my mother, then my father. Then they sent another kind of message. They were coming home to fetch us children. We were all going to live in the United States. My aunt and uncle were coming too. We would all be together again. We would be so much richer when we were in Mexico. And I, Maria Molina, would celebrate Halloween now. I began thinking of costumes already and of the mountains of sugary candy. Still, when I came home from enjoying my first American Halloween, there was something bothering me. But what about Pablo and Abuela? I asked my mother. Do you miss them? She asked. We have left their spirits behind, I explained. No one will honor them anymore on the days of the dead. They will be sad. My mother smiled. We cannot be with them at their graves, she agreed. We can still honor them. How? I asked. The next night, my parents showed me how. In our apartment, we set up a small ofrenda, or altar. On it, we placed the photograph of my grandmother, my brother's favorite toys, and a bowl of marigolds. My mother baked her own pan de los muertos, and this went on the altar too. All night we kept vigil. Before I fell asleep, I looked all around at my family, and it was magic, the most magic thing of all. So, if we're going back to comparing Maria's culture to your own culture, what are some things that are similar? So, we would put that in the middle. And what are some things that are different? So, some things that are definitely different is that in Mexico, when she celebrated the Days of the Dead, they don't celebrate Halloween where they dress up and get candy. They celebrate it more as an honoring of the people who have passed and their families. Versus in the United States, we celebrate the dead by dressing up in costumes and going out for candy. And it's kind of adapted from different cultures. Another thing is that in Maria's culture, they get off for the Days of the Dead versus my culture in Halloween, we don't get off unless it's a weekend. So that is the culture lesson for the day. If you're joining me at noon, feel free to do so, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.